Without further ado, let's first welcome our presenter, Joe Pannitto. Joe's very excited, ready to give an exciting presentation this afternoon since we have an excellent conference. Joe has been a Toastmaster since 2017, holding multiple offices of secretary and president at different times, and competing at contests at the club and area level in District 10. He owns a business developing positive skills for life, where he's a certified trainer in the three vital questions, the empowerment dynamic, helping individuals, organizations, Toastmaster clubs, their members, teams to make shift happen, to improve their results, and to achieve their goals. Without further ado, let's welcome our presenter this afternoon, Joe Pannitto, Make Shift Happen.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster David Young. It is a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Let me ask you, why did Thomas Edison endure thousands of failures on his quest to invent the light bulb and his goal to light the world? Why do some clubs achieve President's Distinguished status? Why do some Toastmasters achieve Distinguished Toastmaster status? Part of it is because they have the passion and the desire for achievement to reach those goals. The other part of it is because they made the shift from thinking about the challenges and why they can't do something to holding an unwavering vision of what's possible and what could be. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, this session is designed to help you make that same shift in your clubs, in your personal lives, and in your work lives. We have a lot of information to go through in a very short amount of time. As we go through this, I want you to write down a situation in your world that you want to see improved. At the end of the presentation, you'll have an opportunity to find out how you can get a worksheet, a PDF worksheet, that will help you apply what you're learning in this session to improve that issue. Therefore, let's get started. What are the three vital questions? Very simply, where are you putting your focus? Are you focused simply on the challenge, the problem, or are you looking at where you want to be, what the outcome is that you want to achieve? How are you relating in this scenario? We've got to be honest with ourselves and realize how we're being perceived, how we perceive ourselves in the situation, and how we're perceiving others in the situation. Are we promulgating and perpetuating the drama that's involved, or are we looking at the outcome and figuring out what the solution is going to be? And finally, what actions are we taking? Are we reacting to the problem and working on that short term just to get rid of it or put it off? Or are we being creative? Are we looking at what that final outcome, that vision that we have is, and working towards that? Those are the three questions that we're going to talk about today. I want to introduce you to FISBE. Now, FISBE is not to be confused with that little disc that we throw when we're in the park or in our backyards. But FISBE stands for focus, inner state, and behavior. All of us, whatever we're focused on, is going to cause us sometimes, if we like it, very passionate, very desirable, or if it makes us anxious and we have a lot of anxiety over it and nervous and uncomfortable with it, it causes that inner state. And whatever we're feeling causes us to have some sort of behavior. We react in some way. When you look at human beings, I like to say that we function on operating system 1.0. 1.0 is problem orientation. That's kind of our default mechanism. We have an issue, there's a problem that arises that causes us a level of anxiety. And that anxiety, that uncomfortable feeling that we have, causes us to take some sort of action, some sort of step to try to reduce or eliminate that problem. What I'm proposing today, and what I want to share with you, is how we can all upgrade ourselves from operating system 1.0 to operating system 2.0, and that's the outcome orientation, where we look at the long term, we look at where we want to actually be. And if we chose the right outcome, that outcome drives our passion, drives our desire. And when that happens, that propels us forward, and we take those baby steps necessary to achieve that outcome. When you look at this, the two operating systems, I'll share with you a quick example. I came from the world of sales. In sales, as a lot of you know, you're only as good as what you sold last week. In the problem orientation, my problem was the sales manager. I had to make sure I kept the sales manager happy. That caused a lot of anxiety, especially when I wasn't hitting my goals at the end of the month. That anxiety caused me to have a flurry of activity. I made phone calls, I got emails out, and I got right across the finish line to hit my sales goal for the month. I could relax. I'm not anxious anymore. But guess what? The problem's still there. That sales manager is still there, and next month may be the same thing. You can see by the graph below the problem orientation that when you're problem focused, you're riding a roller coaster because you never really get rid of the problem. What you're actually reacting to is not the problem. You're actually reacting to the anxiety that you feel, that discomfort that you feel. In that same scenario, if a salesperson in this example is outcome focused, and outcome focused on the long term, what's my sales goal for the year? Okay, and if I'm a good salesperson and I'm passionate about being successful, that is going to drive me to take those baby steps along the course of the year to hit my sales goals. And what's going to happen with that? You may have some ups and downs along the way, as you see in the graph, but you are going to go in the right direction. And what's going to happen is the sales manager is not going to be a problem for you. Because if you're hitting your goals consistently, you're working towards that ultimate outcome, you're going to hit your numbers along the way. There is a very important acronym in the middle of this screen. What we pay attention to drives our intention and drives our results. I like to think of it this way. AIR is a perfect acronym. When you're in the problem orientation, you're drowning. You're below the waterline. You are gasping for breath. And it's a perpetual cycle. You come up for air, you take a breath, but then you're back down in drama and the issue and whatever goes with that. But when you're in the outcome orientation, you're above the waterline. You are breathing fresh air. You're breathing fresh air of possibility and creativity and how you're going to reach that outcome. It's a clear distinction. And I love the visual on AIR and that acronym. What causes us to fall into the problem or the outcome orientation? The first thing that does is how we listen. If we're listening at a very base level where we're just listening for problems, then we're going to stay problem oriented. If you can reach the next level and listen for possibility, listen for desired outcomes. We want to achieve President's Distinguished this year for our club. I want to be at least halfway towards my DTM by the end of 2020. When you listen for the possibility, that gets you farther to the outcome orientation. And listening on level 3 is listening for innovation and creativity. That's thinking outside the box, as we all say. That is the most in-depth listening that we can do. Now, listening is part of the problem or part of the challenge when we're talking about these orientations. The other part are triggers, and we all have triggers. There are certain things that create an immediate reaction with us. Part of it can be environmental. You're not going to listen, you're not going to be engaged correctly in conversations and discussions in the wrong environment. If the room's too hot, or the room's too cold, or it's too noisy, or whatever the case may be, it's not conducive to a conversation. Maybe you're too tired. Maybe it's an issue where you've got to step back and say, let's do this at another time because I'm too hungry, I'm too tired, I really can't think about this right now. Part of it's time constraints. You may be in a situation where time doesn't permit a lot of thought on this. This has to be done by 4 o'clock. Something may be very challenging. It may be driven by how you react to other people in the scenario. Let's be honest with ourselves. We all have different ways that we will interact with other people. Sometimes we have preconceived notions. Hey, you know what? So-and-so is always an issue. It's always tough to work with them. I have a hard time working with them. It happens. If we're honest with ourselves, it all happens. When we react to these triggers, there are certain strategies that we employ. Those strategies go from withdrawing and being silent. I'm sure you've been in meetings or had discussions where someone pulls back into themselves. For whatever reason, they were triggered and they're just not going to participate any longer. Sometimes, basically in my sales scenario, all of a sudden you move at lightning speed to try to solve the problem, and there's a flurry of activity. Other times, we are completely paralyzed. We don't know what to do. There's stalling. We procrastinate. And ultimately, things get worse when that happens. So how do we combat that? Part of it is with looking at how we relate to other people. This is a quote from David Emerald. David is an amazing individual. I've had the pleasure to be trained by him, and he is the inventor, creator, guru of three vital questions and the empowerment dynamic. And this is a quote from David. The way of seeing yourself and your life experience determines how you relate to the world around you. Your orientation defines your reality. That is so profound. And that hit me square in the forehead when I came across this work after being diagnosed with a chronic illness. Because I wallowed in self-pity for months as a victim. And this work is an amazing opportunity to really change your life. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the dreaded drama triangle, which was developed by Dr. Stephen Cartman back in the 1960s, I believe. But it's called DDT for short. And DDT is not a pesticide in this particular case, but the dreaded drama triangle is poison. There's 3 players in the drama triangle. First, there's a victim. I certainly played the victim in terms of interactions with a sales manager and the issues that I had when I got my first diagnosis. The victim feels powerless, feels hopeless. Now, I want to make a distinction here. A distinction between victimization and victimhood. Victimization is very situational. 1 month, I may be the victim because I didn't reach my sales goal. The next month, I may be a hero because I achieved my sales goal. So victimization is very situational. Victimhood is when you take on that identity, when that being a victim just becomes you, it consumes you. We all know folks like this. Nothing good ever happens. There's a dark cloud over them. Think about Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh. Nothing ever happens that's good. They are poor me. That's the victim. Every victim has to have a persecutor. Now, a persecutor can be a person, or it could be a situation, it could be a disease, but the persecutor is the problem that is really causing the victim to feel like a victim. The third piece of this puzzle is the rescuer. Now, the rescuer is interesting. Think about a superhero. Take a pick with whatever your favorite superhero is. Superman, Wonder Woman, take your pick. The rescuer is the one who feels that the victim is helpless, and they kind of enable them, and they pick them up, and they take them to safety. That's the drama triangle. When you think about this, and we go back to those operating systems, the drama triangle is perfectly aligned with the problem orientation. Now, I want to make it a very clear statement about this. All of us, depending on the situation, at one point or another, are going to be a victim, a persecutor, or a rescuer. Think about raising your kids. It's very simple. That's a great example. Every teenager out there views their parent as a persecutor. They're the victim. Mom doesn't understand me. Dad doesn't understand me. They're making all these rules that I don't like. And they'll play parents off against each other. Well, mom's really hard on me, but I'll go to dad. Dad will rescue me. He says yes to everything. So that's one example. But we all play these roles depending on what role or depending on what the situation is. So that's very important to remember. So what's the antidote for this poison? The antidote is the empowerment dynamic. Right away, you'll see something very different. The triangle is turned right side up. Instead of having a victim, we've got a creator. That creator is someone who chooses to respond in a different way. They're focusing on the outcome. They have a much more positive attitude. They're filled with positivity. They've got a we can do it attitude. Instead of a persecutor, we've got a challenger. That challenger is somebody that helps us learn from the situation that we're in. They're very constructive in their language. They don't beat us up. They don't tell us that we're no good. And as opposed to a rescuer, we've got a coach. That coach is there to support, not tell us how to get out of the situation, but help us figure it out on our own. Help us by asking the right questions. Help us to figure out what's the outcome we really want. How are we going to handle this problem? This orientation, this empowerment dynamic lines up perfectly with the outcome orientation. The challenge is, how do you go from being in the drama and underwater, gasping for air, to breathing fresh air in the empowerment dynamic? Well, shift happens at two levels. The first is internal. Within yourself, you have to really be honest with yourself. Have an honest conversation. Own how you're feeling and own how you're being perceived by other people. That's the external part. How are you relating to other people, and how are you interacting with other people? If you're a manager and you have direct reports, is there a way that you can say what you need to say, not as a persecutor, but as a challenger? As we go through this and talk about this shift, I want to make something very clear. We cannot force other people to shift in their own lives. What happens is we can help them shift by how we react. We can help them change by how we react, but we can't make them change on their own. We can't force the issue. If someone is always a persecutor to us, how we react to that is going to help them hopefully understand that they can work with us better. We have choices to make. When you look at this, there's a point in the road where with any situation, we can feel like a victim or we can choose to be a creator. If I've got direct reports I'm working with, I can either be a persecutor because I'm not getting what I need, or I can be a challenger. I can be a coach or I can be a rescuer. We've got the choice. It's all within us. Now, let's talk about some examples. Moving from victim to creator. With this internally, it's really a question of what we want and how do I choose to respond. One of the big things that we're going to go through with all of this is coming up. Actually, I'm going to hold that thought until we get to another slide. So my mind was moving a little bit farther ahead than where I am. Externally is really thinking about what we really want and why we don't have it and what we need to do to get it. And if that's really what we want. And reframing that problem from being a problem to an outcome. The creator, once you take on that mentality, it's amazing what happens, and you can really move forward at lightning speed. You're moving from being hopeless to possibility, and you're moving from reacting to choosing. From coach to rescuer, rescuer to coach. Internally, you're really taking on and looking at what you're responsible for. You know what? I know that I've got a piece to this that I've got to own. How can I move forward and take responsibility for improving myself? Externally, it's really how you see the problem. And rescuers tend to like to fix things. Rescuers look at it and say, you know what, they can't do it themselves. I have to swoop in and help them. Well, you've got to take a step back. Instead of telling, you've got to start asking and work with that individual to help them, collaborate with them so that they see what they need to do on their own. It's very important. It's a big difference. Shifting from fixing to letting go. Sometimes it's just like a child learning to ride a bike. Sometimes they're going to fall after you take those training wheels off, but you've got to let them do that. Moving, I mentioned that before, moving from telling to asking. The big one is persecutor to challenger. Internally, you've got to think about what the person is trying, or what the situation is trying to teach me. How can I grow and develop from this? When we're dealing with people, a lot of time it's what is the intention. And I want to make a point and talk about this for a second. One of the big concepts in moving from persecutor to challenger, and for a victim, when you perceive someone as a persecutor, is to identify what the intention is. Persecutors basically are viewed negatively. But if you can assume positive intent, and I want you to write that down, assume positive intent. No matter how it's communicated to you, assume that they're trying to help you. That helps you put your guard down a little bit. And eventually, as you assume positive intent, and you start interacting with that persecutor differently, hopefully they start picking up on that. And they can start moving towards that challenger role. Sometimes it may just be a direct conversation that you've got to have, that they may not even understand what they're doing and how they're communicating and how it hurts your creativity, hurts your motivation. This all culminates into taking action, the third vital question. And again, I'm going to go to David Emerald. I love David. When you state your desired outcome, and tell the truth about where you really are. These 2 points create a polarizing effect which creates dynamic tension. This is so profound as well with what's going on. Let's talk about dynamic tension. Dynamic tension is a situation where you are going to create an outcome that you want. What you perceive is your final vision. You're going to assess where you are right now. Where am I? You're going to recognize and identify the stuff that is around you that is helping you to move toward that outcome. And you're going to recognize what's holding you back. You're going to have to make a choice on what actions you're going to take. Actions equates to baby steps. What are you going to do more of that's supporting? What are you going to do less of or eliminate that inhibits you from reaching your outcome? I call this a 3-step dance. And I know if I'm on a small screen on your computer, this probably doesn't look as good, but I've got a rubber band just like in the picture. Okay, this is a 3-step dance. Where you want to be and where you are. That creates tension. You feel that in a rubber band. You feel that tension. That tension's uncomfortable. What happens is you take a baby step towards the outcome, and guess what? That tension gets released. You've made a commitment to do something. You're working towards your outcome. Here's the 3-step dance. You make a habit and you keep doing that. Here's where I want to be. Here's where I'm at. Take a baby step. Here's where I want to be. Here's where I'm at. Take a baby step. If you've chosen the right outcome, then you are going to be filled with the passion and the desire to move forward and make that shift happen and achieve your goals. Now, just a quick summary as you think about the situation that I mentioned to you earlier in the program, to think about something you want to improve. So, where are you putting your focus? Problems or outcomes? How are you relating? How do you view yourself? How do you view other people? Are you helping or inhibiting? And what actions are you taking? This has been a very, very condensed presentation of a very complex subject that I generally do workshops on that span half-day to full-day sessions. We compressed it a lot. I threw a lot at you. On the screen, you see that there is a worksheet available, and if you email me at dpsforlife@winstream.net, I will be happy to send that to you so that you can work on that issue that you want to try to improve on and apply what you're learning today. I am happy to talk to any of you offline as you go through that process. With my business, I do coaching one-on-one in groups. I do speaking, I do training. You can see everything there, including my number on how to reach me and my website. With that, I am going to turn everything back over to our moderator, Toastmaster David Young.
Let's welcome Joe Pannitto. Such an excellent job. I was holding on my rubber band, almost break it because of tension. You taught me how to relieve, so I do not break another rubber band. Thank you so much. Excellent presentation from Toastmaster Joe Pannitto. At this time, we'd like to open the floor up for questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Our Zoom host can enable the chat again to everyone, so please write down your question. We have one during your presentation. That's right. We got one during your presentation, Joe, from Serini. She asked, I have a question on how to control emotions in conference calls. When someone opposing to your proposal on the other line, you don't see them. I mean, don't you want to just break them sometimes? So,
wow. That is a situation we've all been in. And what I would tell you to do, or suggest that you do, I'm not going to tell anybody anything, what I suggest that you do is go back to what I mentioned with the persecutor challenger slide. assume positive intent. Everyone, I believe in my heart, everyone is trying to help. They just communicate it in the wrong way. And if you assume positive intent, that's going to bring your emotions down a little bit so that you can basically see what they're saying in a different light. The other thing I would suggest is when that happens, just take 10 seconds. Maybe shut off your video, take 10 seconds, take a deep breath, and then re-engage in the conversation. But try and get those emotions calmed down a little bit.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other question for Toastmaster Joe? This is a very, very great topic on emotional intelligence. I personally myself took a course on it, learning how to cope with losses, perhaps pressure and stress from COVID-19. I'm sure many of you in this room tonight or this afternoon in Toastmaster facing a lot of stress and pressure right now. So any question for Joe? I got one popping in from Janet Westerman. Toastmaster Janet asks, how does time factor into collapsing these cycles, such as letting the dust settle after chaos?
That is very situational. It's a great question. It's very situational, and it's more art than science. You've got to evaluate all the players that are involved in the different roles and really make a determination on how you want to respond to that. It's a completely gray area. It's going to be very situationally specific. Taking a step back for a little bit if time permits, and sometimes we're under a lot of time crunches, but as time permits, take a step back and really look at it from the outside in if you can with that situation.
Thank you, Toastmaster Joe, for answering that. Anybody else has a question? We have time for perhaps 2 more questions. I'll put two more questions. If you have a question, please pop it in the chat box to everyone so people can see.
I went through everything fairly quickly, and I know I threw a lot at everybody, but I have a habit, as Toastmaster Young knows in my meetings, I have a habit of running long sometimes. So I was very conscious of staying within time.
Yes, Toastmaster District Director Savanthi.
All right, wonderful presentations, Joe, and I'm super proud you're part of my home club to inspirations. Congratulations, and to you too, David.
Thank you.
You talked about your desired outcome and how to envision that, right? So I assume positive intent. I know things are going to work well for me, but maybe I don't see the desired outcome. Maybe I don't have the vision or the wherewithal to see what I desire, but I know that there is some restlessness in me, right? So what's your thought on who to seek out to help and how to know who to seek?
Sure. That's a great question, Savanthi, and I appreciate that. Napoleon Hill, if you've ever read his books, in particular Think and Grow Rich, he talks about your mastermind group. And what I would suggest that you do is, all of us have those mentors, those counselors around us, and I would seek some of them out, those people that are important in your life, that you value their opinion, and I think that's a great place to start. The other thing, and it sounds kind of silly, but this is something that I find very effective for me, is I will take from time to time 15, 20 minutes and sit in a dark room with no music, no nothing, no Outlook, no cell phone, and just ponder. And sometimes as your mind starts wandering, things will come to you. So those are two strategies that I would suggest.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Toastmaster Savanthi. That's a great question, how to get yourself out of the distraction. We have one more question in the chat box. This is from Toastmaster Vim from the Switchlock Impact Toastmaster Club. I know him pretty well. How would you deal with someone with varying personality? And way to go, Joe.
Wow, that's a great question, Vim. I will give you my standard disclaimer. I am not a trained healthcare professional, so let's start with that. But my immediate reaction to that, Vim, and Vim, it's great. I appreciate seeing you today. Vim was part of my very first club that I was in. Assume positive intent is at the core of it. And that really is kind of the guiding principle. Sometimes if you're in a situation where personalities just don't mix whatsoever, sometimes you can have a direct conversation with them and let them know how you feel and how they are making you feel. Hopefully they'll be responsive to that. If it is a situation where things are not getting better, then at some point, all of us have to make a decision. Is this a relationship that I want to continue or not? So hopefully that answers your question, Ben.
Thank you. We appreciate it. It is definitely tough to deal with people from different personality, especially from an emotional mindset. Thank you, Toastmaster Joe. With time wrapping up, I would like to first thank Joe Pannitto for this is such a powerful material about the empowerment dynamic. We learned a lot. Thank you, Doctor, for healing us. This is very important during this time. The remaining time we had, about 6 minutes, I would like to see if every one of us who is in the participants room can provide your feedback and evaluation to our presenter, Toastmaster Joe Pannitto. I just pop in a form on job form in the chat box. If you can see it, please click on the link. And you can also find this in the District 10 Toastmaster Conference agenda. But the direct link is there. Click on the link. Click on presenter for Joe Pannitto. Please fill out the evaluation form. We have about 6 minutes remaining in this session. We're on time. And also during the same time, if everyone wants to learn more about you, Joe, what you do for a living in the developing vitality question, how can they contact you? I noticed you pulled up your contact information slides already.
Yes. Easiest way to reach me is email or by phone. I will tell you that the 3 vital questions, the empowerment dynamic for individuals, there is an online course that I facilitate. So if you're interested in that, email me. I'll send you the information on that. It's a very easy way to get involved with it and get started with it. I'm also open to talking about doing any type of presentations or coaching, one-on-one coaching. If you've got, for example, that situation you're dealing with on that worksheet, and you want some help with it, let's talk about that. But coaching, speaking, training is everything I do, and we can, reach out to me by email, and we can chat about possibilities.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster Joe. Again, thank you so much for the excellent presentation. Look forward to a lot of email. Checking inbox. So I look forward to I'm seeing a lot of chat box saying, way to go. Thank you, Joe. You did awesome. You're awesome. You should help me. You're the doctor. Dr. Joe, help me. EQ, right? We have IQ. We have EQ. I'm teaching about CQ culture. So these things all put together very well, especially for Toastmaster and international organization. How can we help and support each other during this uncertain time? Thank you very much, Toastmaster Joe. We have about 4 minutes remaining in this session. I just got a chat that our District 10 Director might have a few words to say, so I'd like to pass the moment right now to our District 10 Director, Toastmaster Savanthi Pelpati.
I just happened to wonder where you got that message from, because I did not say that. That's all right. But I am only thrilled. I'm only thrilled to say that, Joe, this is something that is valuable, that is relevant, that is right on point. These might seem like simple constructs. I think you mentioned it at the beginning of your session, they sound simple. Assuming positive intent, for example, sounds so simple, but do we always do that? A lot of the commotion that happens, the restlessness, the listlessness, the angst that happens within us is a direct result of not assuming positive intention. And that kind of doesn't occur to us, especially when our emotions are riding high, right? When when we feel defeated, when we feel undervalued, when we feel confronted. And that's something we can all do, is assume positive intentions, is to not feel like we either require pity or we need rescue. Just stay, assume positive intention, harness your energy, and move forward. And to me, I really like how you repeated your message about envisioning your future, your desired outcome, and how you can seek mentors, how you can stay positive, how you can stay the course and achieve what you have built out for yourself. So envisioning that, and you talked about mentors, you talked about mentors and how we can go about doing that. You talked about meditation, how we could help ourselves. Perhaps it's a dark room, perhaps it's yoga, perhaps it's some light music from someone, but find some way, right? That's really what I took away. And I captured a couple of pictures for you. I sent them via email. And what I also felt was very apropos with your presentation, was how your personality, the way you answered, the way you presented yourself was very congruent with your message. And that, I think, is very powerful. If you yourself were restless, we probably wouldn't get your message as well. So I want to compliment you on that. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for bringing us some beautiful slides. And thank you for being here. Back to you.
I appreciate that immensely, with all sincerity. And I will tell you that Toastmaster David Young has been very supportive. We've done some rehearsals. Not that I haven't done presentations before, but it's been very helpful to work with David and do rehearsals and get our timing down, get my timing down. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Toastmaster Joe, and thank you, Toastmasters Afante. It's been really great job. Let's everybody give him a round of applause virtually. Can't hear us, but
you can unmute and give an applause while we leave.
Unmute for our Zoom host. Unmute everybody briefly.
Judy Smith down here.
Wonderful.
Good job, Joe.
Great job.
Thank you.
Keep it up, my man. Good job, man. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you all.